It's been an eclectic week in New Japan Pro Wrestling. The king of King. Can I just start that over? It has been an eclectic week in New Japan. The road to King of Pro Wrestling gave us the debut of Kukai and more signs that the Knockout Brothers might be a true breath of fresh air for the company. There was also a trip to China for some of the crew and a special event promoted by Taiji Ishimori that actually outdrew the regular group. All that and a King of Pro Wrestling preview. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm still learning to speak. I'm Steven Conway, and this is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling when I can actually get words out of my mouth. My name is Steven Conway. He's Jeremy Finestone. We're contributors to the Fight Game Media Network, tripping over the second sentence, Jeremy. That's got to be a new record for me.
You know, we always say there's the 1 in 100 that always goes wrong, and we've probably been doing this about 100 times where you do your cold open, and I was just dying over here. I'm like, keep it together.
Awful.
But
awful.
I waited for the opening credits, and then I got my giggle out.
But hey, when you botch a spot, you keep going straight through, right? You don't just stop. So here we go. We're going to keep going,
everybody.
Mokuyobi Days is Thursday. Welcome everybody thank you for joining us. Zach Minger is here, telling us that it is International Beer and Pizza Day. All right.
I don't drink beer, but I will consume pizza.
Well, there you go. So enjoy a beer and a pizza today, as you should. So we are going to talk about the action that's come up this past week. I mentioned it is an eclectic week. There was a show in China. We had the Ishimori thing. We had some Road 2 stuff. And it was just a little bit of everything in there. Not all of it was of consequence, but a lot of it was entertaining. So Fernando Zayas is here. Colin is here. Of course, Zach. Appreciate you guys being with us here live today on YouTube. Brad's here. Happy Yuto Ice is a Champion Day to all who celebrate, according to Brad. I think we're all celebrating Yuto Ice this week. We're going to talk a lot about him, Jeremy, because I think he really showed up big time in Korakuen Hall for sure for his singles match. So we're going to get to all of that. So how have you spent your week, Jeremy? Quite a few shows to keep track of in New Japan. And then, of course, other big shows going on in Japanese wrestling. There's the event in Perth, Australia for WWE this week. AEW had its anniversary. So a lot going on.
When you put it that way, I feel like I haven't done my homework. But I watched the 2 shows that I could watch for free. I glossed over the Ishimori thing because I felt like it would be more fun for you to reveal to me what happened, or we reveal to each other what happened in the show if we decided to get to it. But it didn't seem canonical, and I had a lot of stuff to take care of outside. Apparently, all my friends have October birthdays, so I had to put together a little plan for all those people at the end of the month, and I don't plan on watching the WWE show 5 a.m. for a $30 service that I'm currently not paying for on the West Coast. Just sounds like I don't need to know that Seth Rollins is going to win this match. Okay. So, other than that, I've just been getting ready for King of Pro Wrestling. Like, I'm locked into that show. That seems like a lot of fun to me. More than AEW, more than WWE. I'm circling that show this weekend, and I'm really interested, especially after a couple of the matches that we saw this past weekend. This could be one of the best shows of the year.
I hope so. And, we're going to be seeing also the Noah Grand Odyssey. And I did find out how you can get that show, by the way. It is on a Bima pay-per-view, and you can get that in the United States on noah.co.jp. That's their English language website. They have a link, and that is geocoded in such a way that, at least in the United States anyway, you can get the show. I will probably do that. Turns out, Jeremy, that show only about $15.50 US for what should be a pretty good Noah show. So I might go ahead and do that. War Heroes asking about, what about Bound for Glory? Yeah, well,
I bounced out of NXT a while ago. I realized it felt minor league to me, and when NXT and TNA decided to incorporate with each other. I wish all of it well, and I think it's a great arrangement for them. It doesn't do anything for me personally, and I hope all parties get exactly what they want out of it. I hope that's the case.
Well, yeah, and we're looking at this, and Colin's asking about Marigold Grand Destiny 2025, another Sumo Hall show coming up. He says that he wasn't impressed with the lineup. Colin isn't, but I am. I got to admit, I'm really fired up about it. Mayu Iwatani against Io Sky, and Miko Anu against Utami Hayashishita. And the other one I'm like, really, Sari Yamalka against Hashimoto, right there. Two people with the amateur wrestling backgrounds taking each other on. I think that's going to be really exciting too. Hashimoto, the Sendai Girls champion. So
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's like driving me like wild. Spoiler alert, Kota Ibushi hurt himself pretty tremendously last night at taping at AEW Collision. So that kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit as well, where it's just like, I said it on the Discord, it's like Naito and Ibushi cooked each other in their feud, and neither one of them was ever really the same afterwards. And I don't know if Ibushi can come back from this one. I just wish him all the best and speedy recovery.
Yeah, the thing with Kota Ibushi, he's been gone for years, really. I mean, there's been a guy that looks like him that's staggering around pro wrestling rings for a couple of years since, but after he jumped off the ropes and messed up his shoulder for New Japan in that G1 final, that was the last Kota Ibushi match. The rest of it is just a guy that looks like Kota Ibushi staggering around a ring since.
In my mind, I think we got one more Kota Ibushi match after that Okada G1 final. And ironically, it was against Okada in AEW. The rest of it, it feels like it was all on borrowed time, and that time was up.
Back in New Japan, talking about some things that are on borrowed time, and that is our run-up to King of Pro Wrestling, which is a short one, a very short distance between 2 points here, the Destruction in Kobe show and then this King of Pro Wrestling. They stayed fairly close to home this week. They didn't really leave the island of Honshu much for the regular tour. They certainly left for another show that we're going to talk about a little bit later, the historic crossover in China. But the one was in Kanagawa, which is just south of Tokyo, another one just a little bit north of Tokyo, and then Korakuen Hall itself. Staying close to home and putting on
basic. It was polite of them to put on this on television, but it was a house show.
It was definitely a house show. Saturday, October 4th, they were in Hiratsuka, Kanagawa, and the preview tags here, we did get Kukai. Kukai's, I believe that was his first proper New Japan match was there in a preview. Mm-hmm. They drew 777, which is a rough attendance. The last time they were in that town, in that building, it was 2 years ago, but they drew 1,200. And this time only not even 800 here. And that was for the road to Sakura Genesis. So not capturing the imaginations. Then they went to Korakuen Hall, and there were a couple of matches worth talking about at Korakuen Hall, 3 of them, in fact, that we're going to get into. And Colin is asking, was that historic crossover show live? It was not broadcast on NJPW World, but it was recorded. And word is it'll be uploaded to NJPW World when they can. But it was a live event in Guangzhou, China.
Nor are there any results for historic crossover on NJPW 1972.
Yeah, which is odd. But I do have the results. I did find them on Cage Match, but we'll talk about those. And again, more preview tags at Korakuen Hall in the first half of the card. And it had a junior heavyweight title match on top, DOUKI versus El Desperado. And we're going to get into that one in detail later, but this show only drew 1,161, not even 1,200 in Korakuen Hall for the junior title stuff. This is rough.
It was rough to look in the backdrop and just see empty seats. Like you would just look back like, ooh, there's a bad angle to be shooting from right there.
And they had, like I said, preview tags in the undercard. It looks like they're building to something with the Young Lions, that these guys are starting to get a little contentious. Maybe there's too many of them. And it's just building to something, because now they're starting to fight after the bell. And it's not unusual for them to push and shove afterwards, but this is in New Japan style, a bit of an angle that these guys are brawling after the matches and calling each other out personally, not just like, I want to get a win. It's like, no, I want to beat you specifically individually. It looks like Zane J and Shoma Kato are particularly at it. So I feel like this is leading to something, whether it's someone going off on excursion, having a farewell match, or maybe they're going to bring back the Young Lion Cup. They actually have enough Young Lions to do it now, but we'll see what comes of that.
Is this what we call an intentional escalation via story?
And
there's a little bit of that going on. There's only 3 matches to talk about for this entire weekend, frankly speaking. Like,
no, you're right.
The rest of it is just they put on shows, and the people who saw these cards saw right through it and saw that there wasn't that much to it. And if you did go to this show, you got some matches that give you a lot of optimism for the future if they decide to really go in that direction. But other than that, these ticket sales reflect the cards that they offered.
Yeah. Like you said, they were onto it. And also onto the fact that you're not going to get a ton of effort out of these. And we're going to call a couple people out for that because there was some real laziness in the ring this week. USVA guy is here, and he says Ibushi was done the minute he was diagnosed with aspiration pneumonia. And that stuff ends a lot of people if it happens to them. It's a fair point. That does take the steam out of you. That's a pretty tough one to get and to recover from. And he also mentions that the dojo is completely full. There are a ton of guys who haven't debuted yet. And the dojo ain't huge to begin with. So when you get this many guys piling up, I think they want to run some kind of an angle off of it. But we have 6 Young Lions right now. And really, what is it even? You could make the case for 7 if you want to get Nagai in there and things. So there are a lot of Young Lions floating around, basically.
There are a lot of Young Lions. And let's be honest, Tanahashi's taken up a lot of time on these cards. That at the bottom of the card, you could split 2 Young Lion matches on and focus on some of the younger talent that should be up and coming higher on the card.
There is a countdown that goes on sometimes with Walker and Chris Charlton on commentary as to how many days are left in Tanahashi's career. And I have a feeling that more than Walker and Chris are counting them down in anticipation of not having to deal with this anymore. Not those guys aren't the only ones, I think. And not that they're doing that. That's not the story that Walker and Chris are trying to tell, but it's kind of like, good. Only 3 more months of this.
They're pushing that on social media too. They're doing the countdown on the New Japan web, Twitter or the X or whatever you want to call it, where I think on Monday it was like at 89 days. And I'm like, also the amount of days before I'm going to Japan. So that's helpful.
All right. So the 3 matches that are worth talking about took place at Korakuen Hall. And it was a pair of singles matches where they paired off the 2 tag teams that will be competing for the IWGP World Tag Team titles at King of Pro Wrestling. And the first one was Shota Umino and OSKAR. And I like this one a lot. You know that New Japan loves height. They love big guys like that. And OSKAR may not be thick, but he almost has a little bit of a Hikuleo thing going, that he's a lot of arms and legs, not the bulkiest guy, certainly not a Don Fale, but he's also a lot better than Fale. And they love to push guys like that. So if OSKAR can work at a decent level and stay healthy, he is going to be taken care of by New Japan. That is exactly the kind of guy they like to take care of. He's about 6'7" legit. And he is starting to bulk up, and he is getting pretty good. He took a lot of this match from Umino as the heel and the newer guy. He should have. It's exactly what it should have been. Shota did a good job as sort of the underdog babyface who is taking the beating but doesn't give up. But each had some runs of selling an offense. OSKAR is working on getting his sleeper hold over as a finisher. When they weren't doing this, they were having a little thing going where they don't want to give us Knockout Brothers versus Shota and Yuya early. So what they're doing is they're having either Shota or Yuya wrestle one of the Young Lions earlier in the night and get a victory, and then have the other team with Tomoaki Honma against the Knockout Brothers so that they can still do a preview tag, have Honma get beat, and nobody takes any damage that's going to be in the title match at King of Pro Wrestling. So Hanma does the job every night, and they're kind of alternating Umino and Yuya in that spot with him while the other faces alliance. So in the meantime, Oscar's been working on getting that sleeper over. They're not only doing the knockout bomb, they're also doing this putting guys down with the sleeper. And he uses it along with a sleeper slam where he's got the sleeper on, then he just lifts the guy up and slams him flat down. And fans did get into this match a little bit later, especially during a second sleeper spot. But Shota Umino headbutted his way out of it, hit the big lariat, and got the second chapter on Oscar to win. I thought it was a good effort by both guys, and it accomplished what it sought out to accomplish. Shota Umino has the advantage in a singles match. He has more experience as a single, but Oscar can look physically dominant for runs. So I thought it did its job.
I love this match so much. So much, Steven. Shota Umino positioned as the babyface from underneath, and he was able to do the job especially well with the fire and being positioned with like the uphill battle and the seating. It's exactly the kind of perception that he needs to have. And I thought that he did really well with this, and I thought it was good positioning for him. Now, Oscar. I'm so high on this dude. Him and Yuto Ice both, but we're going to talk about Oscar right now. I think he picked up exactly where Hikuleo left off when Hikuleo left. I also think he has a higher ceiling than Hikuleo in all forms of career. But I don't just see Hikuleo in him. I also see Lance Archer. You know, like I see that he's been studying a little bit of that big man technique that Lance Archer has. And I think he has the potential to exceed him as well. Like, he has been given and he is committed to some of the best training in the world. And he has gone full stop at it. And now you've seen the results of that and him working with Yuto Ice for the last 3, 4, 5 years. And they're polished. They came in here and just did singles matches each. And I'm ready to put them both in the G1, like a main event G1 match, these guys. Like, that's how good I thought this was. It made me feel like what they were fighting for, like, mattered. You know, it wasn't just two guys in a ring. Like, these two did not like each other. You know, Shota is mad that Oscar got a title before he did. Like, Shota still has never got a title in New Japan at all. And for him to be, like, out there, like, I really don't like that this guy did this. You know, like, I'm going to prove it. And so he beat him in a singles match, but we all know what's going to happen at that tag match. You know, and, you know, like, they set it up perfectly. The single star gets the singles win, and the tag team gets the tag win. You know, that to me just feels like, and laying the groundwork with Walker and Charlton throughout both of these matches that, as you've mentioned, these tag titles have haven't had a successful title defense in over a year. And
it was October of last year when Mikey Nichols and Shane Hayes successfully defended the titles, and it was against Fale and one of his guys from Tamashi. You know, it was one of those guys. I'm trying to remember, what was it, Caveman Ugg or something like that?
It could have been the ginger guy with the beard.
Yeah, it wasn't Bonzo. Yeah, it wasn't Bonzo. It was like Caveman Ugg or something like that. Caveman Ugg. I'm getting that wrong a little bit. I'll look that up.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing, is that, like, I don't want to undersell it, but it felt like a star-making performance, but in a little bit of both for these two guys. And, you know, we'll get to it right now. All four guys.
It was Caveman Ugg. That was it. It was Fale and Caveman Ugg. I got it.
And you say that our memories are slipping in our old age.
I'm certainly saying that about myself. But after that, we had Yuya Uemura and Yuto Ice. So, boy. And you mentioned how Ice and Oscar have been working together a long time. They were both at the Fale Dojo before they even got to the Noge Dojo in Japan. They, of course, were there as young lions all through that run. And then they went on an excursion together. But, of course, Yuto was suffered a severe setback and only a minute into his first match, dislocated his elbow, and apparently he's still suffering some effects of it. According to the storyline now, might even be real. I don't know. He can't do a full bicep curl with that arm because it just doesn't quite go all the way up the way it's supposed to. So there's a little bit of steam on this match going in. Then you get the fact that Yuto Ice has really blossomed as a character and his charisma has shown up. This match was terrific. Both of them went about 15 minutes, by the way, which is not to be discounted either. 15 minutes, not an error of these guys sucking wind hard at the end of it. The conditioning is there as well. Ice portrays an air of danger that I think New Japan could really use. And Brad mentions the spot here. And I'm going to read Brad's comment and then we'll talk more about it. He said,
I wonder if it's knee. Oh, yeah.
The corner kick from Yuto Ice to Yuya when Yuto was in the corner was disgusting. The noises I made were not of this planet. That was one too. Yuya sent Yuya back to TNA with that kick. I like that.
There was also right under the ring rope where he just went down and just went under. And I was like, oh.
Early in this one, he picked up a table and just threw it at Uemura. There were no barricades because they were doing the junior heavyweight title match later, so the guys could jump and dive. And then
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I thought that knee through the table where Yuya was on the ground and he did the bombaclat, and that move was getting over, by the way. He did the bombaclat with Yuya's head through the table when Yuya was on the ground. I was just like, wow.
And after that, it was mostly Yuto again, as Uemura would attack his arm, which makes sense, of course, in the storyline. And Ice's charisma and brawling style really worked here. This is fun to watch. And he has a good sense of timing as well. So that's developed. I really do see the good version of Togi Makabe in Yuto Ice. When he was in his prime, fighting Chaos and all that stuff, the Chaos faction, that Togi Makabe, the early never open weight title Makabe. I've heard people compare him to Shinya Hashimoto. I think it's a little bit too early to put Yuto on that level yet. Not saying he can't get there, but that's pretty rare air to say he's a Shinya Hashimoto. But Makabe, I'm in. I could see him as a Makabe these days. And it ended up hitting the deadbolt and arm bar for the tap out. Yuya got those moves. He hit the deadbolt, moved into an arm bar, and got the tap out. But this was terrific. This match was excellent. And right now, Yuto Nakashima or Yuto Ice is legit either as a tag team wrestler or you can put him in a singles and he'd be a credible threat to just about anybody. And I think these guys are exactly the kind of new talent we want to see. The question is, will the company get behind them the way they need to? Too early to tell that, and we won't know for a while. But this is such a good sign that these guys have come along this much.
I think these two matches for these two guys did a lot for the company to be compelled to get behind them, I think. Mm-hmm. You were right in the Makabe comparison and the Shinga comparison. What the person that I think Yuto has been watching on TV and getting his snarl down from is Jon Moxley. Like, he has mastered that Jon Moxley, wear down with the snarl kind of thing that Moxley's been doing for years. And I was just looking at him like, you are the perfect guy to be doing this and co-opting it in Japan. Like, you have that mean SOB style of, like, you feel like there's danger when that dude is in the ring. Like, you feel like there's an air of things are going to go wild. Somebody could get hurt. He's gotten hurt. He damn near, like, some of the spots in this match with Yuya Uemura, maybe they're both fine. Maybe they needed a week off after this match, but some of it looked pretty painful. And I think they trust each other. I don't think there's any ill will or anything like that, but they had an opportunity to really compel the audience that what's not real is real, and that these two in the wrestling world do not like each other. And it is the first time I've seen a rivalry between two native, like, members of the New Japan promotion that feel like they really don't like each other in this, like, young generation. you have the fire and the ice. They talked about that where Yuya has got the heat storm and then the Yuto Ice, so that they're natural enemies with each other. And they've laid the groundwork for a pretty amazing future for these two. The only thing that made me laugh was the finish where Chris Charlton and Walker, they were watching Yuya take the deadbolt suplex, and then Yuya immediately locks him into the submission, like the arm lock that wrenches on his bad elbow. And they're both convinced that Yuto is not going to tap. He's not going to tap. He won't tap. Like, that's not tap. Immediately, Yuto Ice taps. And they're both silent.
They need to be like, well, they need to be they need to be smarter about that. Chris and Walker need to be smarter about that.
Right. I watch it. I'm like, better days ahead, gentlemen.
Yeah, there have been a few things. Again, I know that a lot of people like Walker. He was good on Destruction and Kobe, and he has a good voice, but boy, he blows a lot of calls. He still blows a lot of calls.
I mean, at least you knew that they didn't know the finish in advance.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But good grief, he's not going to tap. He's not going to tap. But boy, that's a good way to look like an idiot in a company where a lot of people tap.
I was thinking, like, what could you have said in that? It's like, he's in a position where he doesn't want to tap, but he may need to save his elbow if he doesn't want to be on the show for another night.
It's a business decision. So he can kick his ass at Sumo Hall. Yes,
and you can see
shouldn't be that hard.
Was angry as hell afterwards for having done so. It was all storyline, and the moment was just kind of like, this didn't pay that much.
Yeah, just like I remember he called something he called a move. It was a move where the guy picks him up, kind of flips him over his back, and then drops him down on his knee.
Right.
So the guy's running, and he called it a quebrada con hilo. And that move is neither a quebrada nor is there a con hilo in it. A quebrada is a lion salt. That's a quebrada. So Chris Jericho took the quebrada when he was in wrestling in Mexico, and he used it as a junior heavyweight in Japan. And Chris Jericho became one of the few heavyweights who could really make a quebrada look good.
Right.
And so, the lion salt became a big thing out of space. He just calls this move that has nothing to do with either of those things, quebrada con hilo. And it's sometimes like, are you just making things up? I don't understand why anyway. But and Colin mentions he's fine on Stardom comedy. I wish he were as good on New Japan as he is on Stardom. He's terrific on Stardom. I think he likes Stardom more than he likes New Japan. He certainly broadcasts it like he does.
It may. The only thing that I could get a sense of, and I don't speak to the man. I don't do anything. Like, it seems like he's spreading himself very thin with all of his opportunities and his hustle. And when New Japan was his gig, and it was the thing that he was doing the most. And granted, this could be front office, like we're budget cutting and like he's not doing all the shows and whatever. But he felt more locked in when this was his like primary focus. And now that there are other things like Stardom and he's stateside and he's doing domestic shows and he's going to school and all of these things are excellent. But New Japan Pro Wrestling, to me, feels like a premier promotion that should have an announcer that isn't really having the optics of doing all these side hustles.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And that's part Bushiroad's fault, isn't it? That they just they don't seem to be able to budget either the will or the ability to budget for somebody to just go in and be a good New Japan announcer. They have to do 10 different things.
And so obviously there are a bunch of outside factors, and I want to caveat that, but that's just my kind of like, if there's an improvement, it just requires more of a singular focus back to New Japan.
Yeah. And all right, well, we'll move on from that. And I'm not trying to pile on the guy. I hope he does well. He was Destruction of Kobe was a good night for him, so maybe he'll be focused at King of Pro Wrestling. And he's also going to be doing Saturday's show live as well. That one's Saturday or Friday. I'll look it up in a minute. The 9th. No, it is going to be Saturday's show, the 11th. That one is on New Japan World on both English and Japanese live commentary. So they're sending him to that one. After that, though, we did have an IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match. It was El Desperado defending against DOUKI. And this is where my worry about DOUKI joining House of Torture came true. He's Sho with a mask now. He's Kanemaru with a pipe instead of a bottle. He has lost all the things that made him interesting. The wrestling was good in the beginning of the match, but it had none of the intensity of DOUKI in the Tokyo Dome. I was sitting in the dome. I felt it. People were into that match. They were excited about DOUKI versus El Desperado. He got hurt. That's nobody's fault. That's a crappy accident and things. He had that famous kabuki actor come out with him. When I was sitting in a restaurant after the show, somebody who had nothing to do with wrestling, I was having yakiniku, and I was talking with a Japanese couple that were sitting at a table next to me. I mentioned that I had been at the Dome, and somebody else in the restaurant, it was a very small restaurant, so everybody was kind of talking with everybody, said, wrestling, right? Pro wrestling. And they mentioned that, this kabuki actor who's a big deal was there. Like, they knew that. They didn't watch wrestling, but they knew this kabuki actor had come out with DOUKI. That somebody that had nothing to do with wrestling. It was almost like a little pop culture moment. This match was a dead fish compared to that. And this should be one of the most anticipated junior heavyweight matches in all of New Japan again. And it didn't even fill up Korakuen Hall. And it's just sad. And Sho almost worked as much as DOUKI did here. A ton of interference, late, especially late in the match. DOUKI was in numero dos. Sho jumped in. The crowd groaned. Kukai jumped in and helped out, but he got hit by the wrench, so he looked ineffective. Despe managed to hit DOUKI with the pipe a couple of times, and that got somewhat of a pop, but not really, although that should have been a big moment. He hit a pinche loco, but no referee. Sho ends up hitting Despe with this black mirror thing they've got now, which doesn't look dangerous, doesn't make a good noise, doesn't look like it would actually injure anybody. DOUKI then put in the darkness choke, it's called now, instead of the DOUKI choke. Hit him again with this silly black mirror thing. The referee stopped it because he was allegedly out, Desperado, and we have a new champion. This was not good at all. This was bad. It landed with a thud. The people at Korakuen Hall didn't care about it. And this is one of the most anticipated matches of Wrestle Kingdom last year. And this thing just lands with a thud. It's another example of why this was a terrible mistake by New Japan to take DOUKI and just make him another guy in House of Torture instead of the interesting, fascinating character he was before that. It has backfired on him. They can't draw flies with this guy. Now, good job. Well done. I hope it was worth it to add a 10th guy to House of Torture and take away someone who could have been a drawing card. He's the junior heavyweight champion now. I don't think anybody cares.
Okay. I thought the match, I was really excited to have these two face off with each other again. And for all intents and purposes, I got pretty much the match I thought I was going to get.
But that's the point I'm trying to make. It should have been so much better than this, and that's exactly what it was going to be. Another House of Torture match.
And the only reason in my mind I'm okay with it is because if you do it right, you're saving the good stuff for when they run it back at a bigger show. You know, like you have the bullshit, you have all of these, like the House of Torture, you have Kuakai get, annihilated. You have Desperado essentially knocked out and the referee calling it for DOUKI after getting all the things of an injustice for Desperado, in which he is going to, from underneath, fight all of this back. Is it regressive? Yes. Is the way that they got there not appealing for a lot of people and it's reflective in the ticket sales? Absolutely. But I'm also looking at it from a booking standpoint and seeing that they clearly don't think Fujita is ready yet. Hiromu Takahashi isn't like the guy anymore in the division. Really, the only two people that are circling the top of that division are DOUKI and Desperado. Everyone knows it. So the last Wrestle Kingdom, and I'd be shocked if the Wrestle Kingdom match isn't those two again for that title.
Well, there'll be other people involved in it. They won't just do those two against each other. There'll be, if they do it, it'll be a 3-way or a 4-way or something. But
maybe it could be, like maybe Desperado wins the Super Junior Tag League with Kukai, and instead of challenging for the tag titles, he challenges DOUKI for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight instead.
Don't think that's how it works.
They do whatever they want with those titles all throughout the year. All I'm saying is that, like, I'm willing to let this play out because I get the frustration of this match now and waiting for it and all these things. But to me, this was always the beginning of the story and not the end.
Yeah, I disagree on that. I'm sorry. This should have been a big drawing match that just landed with a thud and was almost ignored. And it's because of the piss poor booking and just making him so ordinary in House of Torture. And Brad has it. He said, DOUKI as a heel is intriguing. Sure, he has a reason to be pissed at Desperado. 100%. As part of House of Torture, it's not the move. Exactly. Unaffiliated was sitting right there. It even fits his ethos. It fits the entire DOUKI character to be an unaffiliated. After all those years on the Mexican Indies, and then you can put him in there. His junior team could be Daiki Nagai and DOUKI. That's an interesting tag team. I know that they already have Hiromu, but Hiromu's basically an open weight wrestler in some ways. He wrestles as many heavyweights as he does juniors now. Would have been still intriguing if you want to tell the story that I can't be in Hantai. I don't like Master Wato. I never did. He was the company's handpicked guy when I was working kids' birthday parties in Mexico for $5. I can't be in a faction with him. I can't be in a faction with Desperado because I have to beat him. Fine. On board, 100%. But the House of Torture thing is just a thought, and he's just another guy. And like I said, Venkin has it here. He says, Venkin, everyone joins House of Torture in New Japan, and everyone joins the Don Callis family in AEW. And yeah, and those are two promotions who have been booked piss poor for the last at least several months in New Japan. The first half of the year with Goto was a little bit stronger, although it was top heavy. The booking in New Japan hasn't been great this year at all. And AEW is a mess. And, and so it's the laziness of it, of taking somebody intriguing and just saying, oh, he's a bad guy now. It just hit somebody with a pipe, and just, you had one of the richest stories in the company, and he's now just Show with a mask and Kanemaru with a pipe.
I see what you're saying. I really do. But to me, he is a focal point of the company as the top heel in the junior heavyweight division. And
which he could have done with affiliated and been actually good.
With House of Torture, this is all a through line. This goes all the way back to Suzuki-gun, then to just 5 guys. There was a natural split with Kanemaru going to House of Torture earlier, and then DOUKI kind of siding with him when the rest of the guys went to Hantai. This all made a certain amount of sense within the hierarchy of New Japan, given that DOUKI was an outsider in the first place, and he had no friendship affiliation with the LIJ guys. They never made any intonations with him. It would have felt completely out of left field. Would it have been a better combination? Maybe. Yeah.
100%
I'm not sure.
It would have.
But they need people to be the bad guy. They need an evil. They need DOUKI.
They have Showa Kanemaru if you want heels in the junior heavyweight division. They don't need another one.
We have gone through this. Like the capital for Show has been spent, and he is, the second in command in the junior heavyweight division. He's the guy that wins the title on a count out, not even like a referee decision. You saw how they're both booked against Desperado, and I won't be shocked if Desperado's next singles match is an absolute ass beating of Show. It's like Reed's just going in there, and Show's going to be in his first hardcore match in God knows how long, because Desperado's ready to destroy him.
I can't believe you're making excuses for this crap. I just can't.
I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, they have shows to book, and they have a plan with the story. And I'm just looking through it, and it's like, okay, if this is what we're going to do, I can see the through line and why they want to do it. Clearly, the main story is Hiroshi Tanahashi, and everything else is just kind of underneath, like subplot C, D, and E, not even subplot B. But when I'm looking at them, like, you still need bad guys. And at least, we have good work rate bad guys instead of not, because at least we have an opportunity for the promise of decent matches.
Desperado and DOUKI didn't need to be a good guy, bad guy situation. It could be two guys who just have to beat one another, and that's intriguing on its own. It was intriguing. It was enough on January 4th. It should still be enough now. It doesn't have to be that some guy is a cheating bastard. It can just be that DOUKI has to beat Desperado or he can't sleep at night. That's all it needed to be. They had it, and they gave it up, and this landed with an absolute thud in a building with hundreds of empty seats, a building that's tiny and in the middle of the most populous city in the world. They couldn't fill it. There you go. That's to show you, is it successful? Objectively, not. Objectively, it was a bad idea. And let alone subjectively as an art. Objectively, it couldn't fill Korakuen Hall. Are you shitting me that they can't fill Korakuen Hall with a junior heavyweight title match? Ridiculous. After that, I mean, never open weight 6-man title matches have filled Korakuen, for the love of God. No one cares about that title, including the guys holding it. Half the time, they don't even remember they do. After that garbage, there was also a show in Guangzhou, China. And Brad mentions this too. Does the good work rate matter when it all ends with interference? No, it doesn't. It just turns all that on its head. On the 5th, they were in Guangzhou, China for a show that was called Historic Crossover. There really wasn't any crossover. It was a mix of Stardom matches where Stardom wrestlers wrestled other Stardom wrestlers. There were a couple of New Japan matches on the show, and then there were some matches with Chinese talent in the middle there from people that were from that area and from promotions there in China, which I would be curious to see someday. I just want to see what that looks like out there. Same with the Korean organization. I wouldn't mind if some of that popped over on the NJPW World if they make some alliances. But, someday. What we basically saw were matches that you would see on house shows for Stardom. So you had like Ami Sourei and Lady C defeating Miyu Amasaki and Starlight Kid in the opener. Ami and Lady C are the Tokyo Towers, I think they're calling them now. They're two of the taller wrestlers in Stardom, and they're going to go after the tag team title. So they got to win just to push that. Then there were a couple of matches with Chinese talent on them, a couple of those then. They put up a Future of Stardom title match where Hanako defeated Aya Sakura. Hanako, another one of the tallest ones. And then we had 2 New Japan singles matches. And that was Master Wato beating Ryusuke Taguchi. Babyface match there. And then in a singles match, Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Kushida. Not a world title match, was not billed as such. Just a match that featured the world champion against Kushida. Went about 17 minutes and 5 seconds. And then the main event of that one was the Cosmic Angel group of Natsupoi, Saori Anou, and Sayaka Karara taking on and defeating Natsuko Tora, Rina, and Ruaka of the Hate faction. So basically, babyface finishes. I doubt that Zack Sabre Jr. worked as a heel. I'm guessing that he was, even against Kushida, he was probably doing a technical masterpiece style of match right here. Mm-hmm. But if you look at this up and down, it's no heels going over really. And what you'd expect is just kind of a send everybody home happy kind of match where they get to see some of the stars they catch on the internet. I'd imagine that's how they see it, NJPW World and Stardom World. So that was the Guangzhou show. We don't have any attendance figures for it. And word is whenever it's ready, they recorded it. And whenever they get it back and get it all edited up and things, it's allegedly going to appear on NJPW World eventually. So when it does, we'll take a look.
I'm not going to lie, Steven. I'm struggling to find out what is historic about this crossover.
Yeah, I think it's just a name they used in the past for the cross-branded shows with Stardom and New Japan. They said, we'll just call it that. But you're absolutely right. That the crossover part was not that they were on the same show. The crossover part was that there were mixed tag matches on it. That was the crossover thing. And that didn't happen here at all.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Will Ospreay had a really great match on a historic Gets Over, and that's where Kenny Omega challenged him for Wrestle Kingdom one year. So this definitely doesn't feel like that level of like you can't miss this.
Yeah, no, certainly not. And Brad mentions that like Nigel McGuinness got a title match, but Kushida couldn't. Well, fair enough. I guess they just didn't want to do a canonized title match here. I think they wanted to give you the impression that it because it falls between the two big events. And remember, they had a match where it was supposed to be Zack or Ren Narita facing Takeshita. Then it would have had to be Zack or Ren Narita facing Kushida, and then the winner of that faces Takeshita. And that, I think that gets clumsy when you're talking about promoting King of Pro Wrestling. So they just decided to make this one non-title. Colin mentions they made Chinese fans pay for that. If you never, ever get to see these guys, there are probably some fans who are excited about it. But I have no idea what attendance was. None.
Fair play to Brad. I wasn't expecting on October 9th, 2026, that Nigel McGuinness would be catching strays on a New Japan podcast.
Yeah, well, it's yeah.
You right though, sure.
Yeah, I really think that was more promotional than anything else. That they didn't want to do the whole Narita or Zack or
the match they were supposed to have.
Yeah. Well, that's true too, isn't it? That's true too. The lineup changed for this one a couple of times.
Yeah,
but I suppose, like I said, to the fans in China may have been excited to see these people that they never get to see live. So there it goes. So that was that, and then we had Jeremy. On Tuesday, October 7th, Ishimori gets more ridiculous. So this was a 2-hour-long match that included multiple blocks of wrestlers, and it kind of went on a bit like a Royal Rumble, a fusion of that. And that there would be now Ishimori is in every block, so that's the idea that Ishimori is going through this whole match, but by doing it like a Royal Rumble, he got some rests because Ishimori didn't come out he didn't always come out first. So sometimes he got a bit of a break. So there are multiple blocks of wrestlers. The blocks had themes. He will get into that in a little bit. But if Ishimori was eliminated, that was a point deducted from his total. If he scored a fall, that was a point in favor of his total. And then we were kind of keeping track. So he would get a pin, get a point. He would get eliminated, lose a point. And that was kind of the thing. You get eliminated apparently by taking a fall. That gets you out, except Ishimori just has to keep on going, I guess is the whole thing. And he's trying to stay on the plus side of this equation. Of course, he went down early and had to rally and come back and all this kind of stuff. But mostly this was a comedy show. So the whole idea that this was going to be some intense 2-hour match, forget it. Most of what was going on was comedy, skits, and things so that one, he could rest. Then there would be some wrestling. Then someone else would come out and do something funny and take the attention for a little while. But everyone said this was mostly a comedy variety show. So don't sweat the score too much, I guess was the whole point on this. Is a little bit like, what is it? The comedy show, the improv comedy show, or everything's made up and the points don't matter, that type of thing. Whose line is it anyway? That's the thing.
Sure, right.
But there are too many people to name that were on this show, and it's not really the point. But there were comedy figures. So Taguchi was there doing skits. The brothers from Big Japan Pro Wrestling were there, the Bashman brothers. And they also had legends like Jun Akiyama and Tetsumi Fujinami. Shingo Takagi was part of it. A few of the Young Lions and
Jun Kasai, right?
Jun Kasai was heavily involved as well. So it was something novel. It was something different. And the night after New Japan drew fewer than 1,200, this drew over 1,400 in the same building. So a lot more people interested in seeing Taiji Ishimori do comedy skits than watching DOUKI challenge for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. But which goes to prove my point again. Thank you.
Do you think it was Dump Matsumoto or Taguchi doing a dance routine?
That's right. Oh yeah. Well, I forgot that Dump Matsumoto was in there. Good grief. Yeah, she got in there as well. So that was the whole thing. It was just this little segments and bits where people would take the attention for a little while, and everybody got their little shine in, and then Ishimori would wrestle for a little bit. And apparently, the gag was that all this was put together by AI. So at the end, Ishimori is giving his speech, and then the AI voice came over the PA and said there will be Ishimori gets even more ridiculous. Like this was like this. The first one was Ishimori gets ridiculous. This one was even more ridiculous. And the next one's going to be even more ridiculous. And Ishimori was just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Because the whole gimmick was that Ishimori didn't want to do this. But AI booked the show, was the gag, the running gag throughout the night. And in the end, AI just said, well, we'll be doing this again soon. And it'll be even more ridiculous. So there you go. Yeah, Dump was in that, Benkin, you're right. And Brad mentions that Jun Kasai draws. Sure, yeah. I guess maybe he helped. I'm sure he helped. But yeah, this is a little wacky night out at Korakuen Hall, and I think the novelty of it drew some people because Mao was in it. Remember, we've seen Mao during the junior heavyweight tournament. He was there as well. So some of the names that popped up, they were from everywhere. You got to give Ishimori credit for having ties to a lot of different promotions. There were guys from Big Japan. There were guys from Jun Kasai's deathmatch group. There were guys from DDT, and Jun Akiyama is heavily involved with DDT now, but he was, of course, the Noah and All Japan guy. So he seems to be the one who can unify the wrestling business in Japan. Jeremy, seems like everybody loves Ishimori.
He's a uniter, not a divider, in the realest sense of the term. No, I didn't watch a show. I've put down plenty of money for some of the death and the death matches and some of the other stuff, and I was like, I'm okay with not watching this one. And I saw the results. Still feel pretty okay with the flyby on this one.
That's all right. And then the last show of the week was today. It was in Ishikawa. They drew about 1,500, which is about what they did the last time they were in Ishikawa, so that's not so bad. First good attendance news of the week, really. This one was preview tags. Some of them were good. The unaffiliated versus War Dogs thing was strong. Those guys had a lot of energy. Some of it was really bad, like Sonata completely phoning in his match and doing that god-awful thing where the Eddie Guerrero spot that he doesn't do nearly as well as Eddie Guerrero, where he fakes getting hit by the guitar or tosses the guitar to the other guy. And
he's so bad at it.
Yeah, it's rotten. But anyway, that was part of the show today. So that was the bad part, but the main event was pretty good. There's nothing that you need to see from this one. And there's a lot of going through the motions on these shows, just a lot of it. And the effort used to be a lot better, but it's one of those things where T-shirt Naito seems to be the avatar for these house shows, right? Where Naito would wear his shirt. He wouldn't even take his shirt off. And that's how you knew you were getting low effort stuff. He's going to do a few moves and that would be it. I'm bringing this up for a reason. T-shirt Naito was invented as part of his heel persona, where he came back from Mexico, started the Ingobernables in Japón, de Japón, and his whole persona was that you people rejected me, the company didn't stay behind me, the hell with all of you. I am not going to entertain you. Like, I'm going to beat your favorites, that I'm going to do, but you want me in a 6-man tag in the middle of a Road 2 thing? I'm not even taking my shirt off. It was a heel thing. Like, I am not going to I am not here to entertain you. I'm not putting forth this effort. The problem is it became a self-fulfilling prophecy and he stopped putting forth effort. And then it became a real thing. So even after he turned babyface, T-shirt Naito was a thing where you knew you were going to get 3 or 4 spots out of him and that was it. When you see one of the top people in the company, one of the top people in the entire company doing that, it sort of dribbles down the rest of the card, and then the rest of the card starts doing the same thing. We are getting T-shirt New Japan on a lot of these road shows.
Yeah.
Where these guys are just doing a few spots, and that's about it. And the people like Shingo Takagi, I'll mention, David Finlay, I'll mention, Uemura, sometimes Yota Tsuji, and those aren't the only ones. Phantasmo, I'll put Phantasmo in there. The guys that actually try stick out like a sore thumb. But everybody else is T-shirt New Japan through these shows right here. And it's just a little bit rough to watch sometimes when you get a match of 7 preview tags and all of them but 5 of the guys are T-shirt New Japan. And we're just seeing a lot of that on these Road 2 shows.
Can I make a confession here, Steven?
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know there was a show today and I didn't watch it.
You didn't miss anything.
That's awesome. Because I definitely had the time to, because I went back and I rewatched the 3 matches from the other thing to stay fresh. Because I knew we were gonna be conversing about that. So that just made me laugh because I was like, no, son of a bitch, there was a show today. Sorry everybody. I didn't Steven rolled solo on this one.
That's all right. Maria Graciela Sias is here. Hello, Maria. I'm glad you're here. Venkin as well, by the way. We brought your comment up earlier, but wanted to say hello. She said that she enjoys death matches. They're not for everybody, but Jun Kasai, who is the person, obviously, that you first think of when you think about death matches in Japan anyway, does them better than most. There is something about him and the way he does them. And I think I like death matches. I don't like death matches. I like them more than hardcore matches when done as part of a regular pro wrestling match, because I think those look really boring and lame, and we've seen every incarnation we could see of it. I feel like there's a little bit more spirit in a Jun Kasai death match, a little bit more of a story to it. And a knock on deathmatch wrestling in America is it's just a geek show, meaning in the old idea of a geek show, somebody like putting a long needle through their arm, like David Blaine stuff that he does now, or someone getting their stomach pumped, like the freak show stuff that you get at carnivals and things like that. That it's just, I'll stand still while you hit me with glass, and I'll stand still while you wrap me in barbed wire. And it's like that. Whereas I do feel like when it's done well, and Jun Kasai's group seems to do it better than most, there is actually a story to the match. Does that make any sense, Jeremy? Or am I just kind of...
It does. I'm with you on all of that. So I think the way I would put it is that Japanese death matches have a design and an intentionality behind them, in which a lot of thought and care is given into the design and the layout of the match, especially in a Jun Kasai or a Desperado death match, because these matches are so dangerous that you need to have a skilled set of thinking from point A to point Z of what you're going to do and where you're going to get there, and if you're in the right frame of mind to execute these things after doing a number of different spots. When I watch a hardcore or a death match in America, and granted, I stay away from the CZWs and the GCW, like super hardcore matches and all that
they're
stuff.
Just they're so repetitive, so the same old.
You do not have the skill and experience of wrestlers that come in there with ring general experience of how to lay out a match that isn't anything more than an escalating series of gruesome attacks upon each other, in which you finally, after 15 or 20 minutes, end with, shards of glass on a table or something on the head, or just something so brutal that your opponent can't come back from it, rather than like a story being told with all of these weapons and an intentionality to inflict damage, but nothing so unnecessary outside of the story of the match.
Yeah, well said. All right, so that's our treatise on deathmatch wrestling, which has nothing to do with anything New Japan's doing at the moment, but there you go. But we do. Here's what's coming up this week. So on October 11th, that's Saturday, the crew is in Saitama, and this is both English and Japanese commentary. They did not send Walker to the show today, but they are sending him to Saitama. Saitama is basically part of the overall Tokyo metropolitan area, really. It's another big city on that same bay that pretty much presses up against Tokyo. Same way Yokohama and Chiba do. It's all part of the same area there. Saitama, Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title match. Sho and DOUKI will defend against Desperado and Kukai. Other than that, it's a preview tag show again. But it does have that Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title bout in the main event. So...
would you be shocked if they flipped the title onto DOUKI and Kukai here?
Well, I would, because Doki and Kukai aren't wrestling on the same team.
Sorry.
That would be
Desperado Kukai. Sorry.
Okay, I was going to say which side
would you be shocked if they flipped the junior tag titles?
No,
the other guys had the Doki one.
No, I wouldn't be surprised after that. No.
Yeah, feels like what they would do.
And I'm not, again, if it's all filled with interference from House of Torture, I don't really care. It's just
for sure.
It's kind of like a wet rag anyway.
To me, it's not even an elevation for Desperado to put some shine on the other guy. To have him stand out and give those tag titles. And Desperado's in a good spot in the Super Junior Tag League. Position prominent.
And whoever wins this match will go into Tag League as the champions. So, because
it makes no sense for Doki to be a dual champ.
Not really. Although I still think that sometimes, especially for these tournaments, aside from the G1, which is kind of its own thing, it's on its own level of prestige. I mean, the other tournaments, it feels like it's almost better to have a heel champ going in, because the heel champion shouldn't win the tournament, because then they call their own shot and there's no. So the story can be that somebody upsets the heel, and then at least you're happy about that. Whereas if you go in with a babyface champion, there's almost like this thing where the babyface has to fail in some key way, which can be a story. It can work like that, but it seems like it almost works better with a heel champ and babyface is trying to climb this difficult task of winning this tournament, or achieve this difficult task, climb this mountain, win this tournament, get to the champ who, fails at the end in a way that creates a challenger. But I don't know. I
wouldn't be surprised if they just had it where Desperado is just like the superhuman guy on the team, and Kukai just keeps screwing up and losing matches for them.
And Brad says, watch the junior title stay on House of Torture when Kukai turns on Despe and joins House of Torture and becomes the 1900th member of officially right there. Eventually, there's not going to be room at Korakuen Hall for all of them. They'll just take up all the seats, all the members of House of Torture. Fernando Zayas says, Cactus Jack wouldn't be who he is without the Japanese death matches at the beginning of his career. Boy, is that the truth. That is exactly right. He really made a reputation, mostly in the IWA, one of those, and they had a tournament, one night death match tournament at Kawasaki Baseball Stadium. And Jeremy, when I was in my tape trading days, that was actually a pretty coveted tape to get your hands on, was the IWA death match tournament. It was at an outdoor baseball stadium and drew huge. And Cactus, I think, did three very different death matches that night against three very different opponents. And it was a hell of a night. He writes about it extensively in his book, the first one, his first book. And I recommend anybody who's interested in that to go and read about the trials and tribulations of Cactus Jack in Japan, because it is a pretty fascinating story of living on the fringes of Japanese pro wrestling and also being a part of New Japan. I mean, he toured with Vader at times, in addition to eating Kombini food because he was getting tiny payouts for working tiny shows in tiny towns.
I haven't told you this, but I'm actually going to go see Mick Foley do a live stand-up in less than 3 weeks, just down the street from my house.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So the gang and I, Garrett, Miguel Rubio, I think Dave Rubio, all those guys, we're all going with our significant others. We're bringing Dave along. Dave's going to the show. So we're all making it a thing on October 28th to go see Mick Foley do his stand-up. And maybe I'll get ballsy enough to see if he can have comedic bits about Japanese death matches in the IWA.
That'll be fun. I bet that'll be a fun show to see.
Yeah. So,
can I mention one more wrestling book thing before we move on?
Absolutely.
All right, I got this in the Amazons yesterday.
Oh,
this is Irresistible Force: The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon. It is written by Brian R. Solomon. It's the same man who wrote the Blood and Fire book about the original Sheik at Farhat. And he's a wrestling historian. He is part of the Wrestling News Network, a really good daily news podcast for pro wrestling. He has his own podcast also called Shut Up and Wrestle, where he interviews people from all walks of the wrestling life. Sometimes people that worked with him. He also wrote for WWF magazine back in the day. He's worked directly for Shane McMahon, so he's worked for the WWF. He's researched pro wrestling as a whole. He's a really good historian, and he's a good writer. More than anything else, he's a really good writer and a thorough researcher. Gorilla Monsoon, one of the more interesting guys that a lot of people don't know a lot about. Of course, a lot of people think of him as the announcer for WWF, WrestleMania, and Madison Square Garden, but one of the biggest draws that ever wrestled Bruno Sammartino for the WWF title, one of Bruno's greatest challengers. He had a hand in JWA, Japanese wrestling, in the 60s. He owned a piece of the office. He owned part of the WWF. When Vince McMahon, the current Vince, bought out his father, he also had to buy out Gorilla. Gorilla owned a piece. And before the current Vince sort of got himself into the foreground as an announcer and working for his father and showing some gumption to be a wrestling promoter, the older Vince McMahon, they aren't junior and senior, but everybody calls them senior and junior, considered Gorilla as an heir apparent for a while, that maybe he was the guy that was going to take the company forward. And then, of course, his son, the current Vince, sort of got into the business and showed that he wanted it. And at that point, of course, he was going to work with the son. So it's not like there was a big competition, but Gorilla was one of the guys. And then when his son showed some gumption to become a wrestling promoter, that's when Vince started looking at Vince. But Gorilla was there in case, say the current Vince McMahon had decided, I would like to be a concert promoter, or I'd like to get into another line of business. Gorilla Monsoon might have been the guy to take over the WWF. That's how highly he was thought of in the office. So a lot of interesting stuff in there. I'm looking forward to reading it. Just wanted to plug that.
When did you get that book? Did it just show up?
Well, I pre-ordered it. So when it came out last week, they shipped it to me. So that's it there. So
I'm curious about that book. That one looks like one I want to crack into.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people think of him as the Gorilla position. The Gorilla position is named after him. So when you see those interviews now on Raw, where they're in that little room right in front of the curtain, right before they go through the curtain out to the crowd, sometimes they'll do an interview there, or you'll see a behind the scenes thing where Triple H is watching on a monitor. That's the Gorilla position. It's very elaborate now. They travel with a portable room that's all wired up with monitors and sound and all that.
It blows my mind that there's a truck that basically drives an office around to different.
And of course, the people in there are communicating with the referee in the ring. They're giving all these signals. They're also talking to the announcers. That's at the Gorilla position. That is an elaboration of something that Gorilla did at a lot of the shows, especially at MSG or the Spectrum or the major house shows, where he would just stand right by the curtain and give out any last second instructions or reminders to the wrestlers as they went just before they went through that curtain down to the ring. That was the Gorilla position, just because he's the guy that was always there. And he was the guy that always filled that role, the locker room leader, a guy that would do that. Funny story real quick before we get into that Bobby Heenan told about Gorilla was Gorilla was at his position, the Gorilla position, and the guys went over on time. And, he would tell people how long they're supposed to go. All right, remember we're doing this, 15 minutes, all that kind of stuff. Well, the guys went over and kept going over and kept going. No finish. And Gorilla would kind of stick his head through the curtain and you're like, go home, go home being the term for wrap the match up. Right. And nothing, they ignored him. So at one point he got fed up with it, and Gorilla Monsoon, television announcer extraordinaire. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody in the crowd knows who he is. Gorilla just walked down the aisle, walked up to the ring, stuck his head under the bottom rope, and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Go home!" And then stuck out, walked out. And then the referee and the two wrestlers looked at each other and was like, "We're all in big trouble." And they finished the match in seconds. Like, I think the guy ran another guy into the corner, rolled him up, and pinned him real quick. And that was the thing where he just said, "The heck with kayfabe. I'm just going to run down there and scream, go home" at him if they're not going to listen. So,
looking forward to the book.
Yeah. So, And Maria mentions Bobby and Monsoon were great together behind the desk. And just great friends too. Bobby Heenan said it was one of his best friends in life, not just in wrestling. So all around good dude too, apparently is. And like no one, not another one of those guys. There aren't very many of them. Terry Funk's one where nobody really has a bad thing to say about Gorilla. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, I just
so many times that like some of these old guys, like after some time passes, like you find out they weren't so great, or skeleton in their closet. It's just nice to know that people who are formative in this pro wrestling industry might have been okay.
Vinkin's asking, isn't that the ref's job to know when the finish happens? Yes, it is. And for some reason on this night and in that match, no one was paying attention. And that was why it was such an extraordinary thing for him to go down there and stick his head under the ring. The referee usually has an idea of how long they're supposed to go and give time signals. Yes, that's absolutely true. Another funny thing about that, I remember hearing this story, but there was a guy named Guy Coffey in Memphis, Mr. Coffey. And he kind of ran the souvenir table and did other odd jobs for the wrestling company. But on television, Memphis had a studio TV show. So it was just in this little tiny television studio where some of the best wrestling angles of all time took place with Jerry Lawler and Dutch Mantel and the Fabulous Ones and all this stuff. And the signal to go home to finish up the match was when Mr. Coffey would just walk out from behind the curtain and lean against the back wall. So if you saw Coffey there, you would know that it's time to wrap the match up. And when I worked for a small company in Indianapolis, it was always the ring announcer would take his glasses off, like he was reading something. If the guy took his glasses off, I mean, oh shit, we're late. We got to go home. But Mr. Coffey would walk out. The fans who would go to the show regularly got smart to it. And if something really exciting was going on and he would come out, they would start, they would like jokingly like, oh, Mr. Coffey, go on back. Let him wrestle. Let him wrestle. No, don't come. Go away, Mr. Coffey. Don't let him see you. We wanted to keep going. Like they got smart to the whole idea that if he came out, the match was going to end. They figured it out. So they're like, oh, go away. Let him wrestle. Let go, Mr. Coffey, go on. So, there are all kinds of ways.
All throughout the history.
Yeah. It's fun stuff. Anyway, look at old school wrestling there. Go ahead and pick that up. Brian Solomon's books are fabulous. You should do it. Tim Hornbaker's are very good too. Brian's an even better writer and just as good a researcher. So,
Jonathan Snowden, actually, I put some money down for his book on the history of Noah that he is putting out right now. So
nice.
You can find that on Indiegogo. I don't remember the title of it. He's selling it right now. He's just trying to hit a low budget goal. You can buy a print or digital copy of it. And my knowledge of Noah is such that I should be reading books like this more.
Well, and that's the point the reason I even bring this thing up, although he never worked for New Japan or anything, but I just want to support this kind of books, this market, and just the idea that people can do the research, put together something, teach us things we didn't know before. This wrestling research, I want to support that, and the fact that Brian works so hard to look at things. Tim Hornbaker's thing on Buddy Rogers taught us a lot of things about one of the biggest stars in wrestling that we didn't know. And he did the research, and now we know a lot more about how he even got to the WWF, what became the WWF. And that had a seismic impact on the wrestling business. I won't get into the whole thing about Buddy Rogers, but we didn't really know how he got to New York, like how the promoters in New York and Buddy Rogers hooked up. Now we know. And it turns out that the Bobby Davis, the manager, it was far more influential in wrestling than we had realized before. And these guys are going through all these things and learning all this stuff. And I just want to promote stuff like what Jonathan Snowden is doing. Like, a lot of people don't know the history of Noah. I'll bet he found some things that hadn't been known publicly before, or at least not put together in a way that makes sense. And that's the kind of stuff that we should support. As someone who's a big wrestling history nut, and I have a website where I try to look back at the past of wrestling and tie it together a little bit, Ringside Replay. These books are very, very helpful and very fascinating in seeing how the business evolved, because everything influences everything else is the bottom line. And the more we know, the better off we all are as fans, I think. And
the reality is, if you're creating content in any way, shape, or form, you should be educating yourself and reading books like this, and making sure that the information that you're bringing forth as someone who is presenting themselves as an authority on this kind of information is doing the work to actually back that up.
Yeah, and let's support these guys' efforts. It's the fact that they put all this work into finding these things out and putting these books together. Let's support them. Let's buy the books, let's read them, and let's support what they do. And hopefully we'll get more of it. And that's what we're looking for, is a lot of missing pieces in wrestling history because of how secretive the business was. The more we can learn, the better we can understand what's going on. So there we go.
Yeah. I'm looking for the name of that book before we move on, but I don't think I'm going to find it.
King of Pro Wrestling, Jeremy. Should we go ahead and review or preview this show that's coming up on Monday?
I suppose that's probably a good plan for us.
All right.
I like that for us, Steven.
So let's take a look at the King of Pro Wrestling 2025 lineup. This will be taking place at Ryogoku Kokugikan Sumo Hall, as it's known here in America. And we begin with a six-man tag. Is that what you have there? Yep, indeed. We have the unaffiliated group in the first match against the War Dogs again. And this one is Titan, Hiromu Takahashi, and Shingo Takagi against David Finlay, Taiji Ishimori, and Clark Connors. This one doesn't have a whole lot of canon behind it right now. It's just three pretty good wrestlers facing three other pretty good wrestlers, and should just be a pretty good energy. Give good energy to the beginning of the show here. All these guys are some of the ones I discussed earlier who actually do put effort in. I think there is no T-shirt Shingo. There's no T-shirt Finlay. So I think this will be a nice start to the show.
It's interesting to me that Finlay is here on the card, lower on it, and the two War Dogs that are with him are pretty much the most loyal of the two that are with him. I'm just curious to see if this is just going to be a match or if there's going to be something coming along with it in this match during the finish or as a result of the finish.
Yeah, see if something comes out of it for sure. It's both Shingo and Finlay are kind of in no man's land when it comes to Wrestle Kingdom, period.
Yeah.
Like, they really no idea.
Losing in the last show at the Destruction has sent them both down the pecking order. I don't see any spot for a title match for either of them right now.
No, and I'm curious because King of Pro Wrestling should go a long way, not all the way. There'll be other stuff later, but a long way toward telling us what the card's going to look like on January 4th. Yeah. Because they need to start promoting it. They
sold a lot of tickets sight unseen, literally sight unseen of a card, but we should be coming out of this show with an idea of at least the top 2 or 3 matches.
Yeah. And there's a lot of talented guys in this match that have nothing right now. So hopefully this will begin the road to something. All right, next match. Drilla Maloney and Sonata.
The payoff.
We know Drilla Maloney is motivated here. We don't know if Sonata is. But they've been doing this thing. It's supposed to be a no disqualification match now because Sonata's been pulling that Eddie Guerrero thing, like we mentioned earlier, that he doesn't do very well, where he fakes a guitar shot and tosses the guitar to the other guy, or he's just walked out at Korakuen Hall. He just left the match, sat down in the crowd, and got counted out, almost like out of defiance to Drilla Maloney that I'm just not going to fight you. I'm just going to make you sit and wait. Maloney wants a no DQ match so that Sonata can't just take a count out. Sonata can't just fake a DQ. Like, nope, you're just going to have to fight me. That's the story they've been telling. And a couple of times, Maloney has been blasted with the guitar. He's been bloodied up a couple of times. Feels like time for him to get his revenge, Jeremy?
I don't know. No disqualification with the House of Torture. Feels like the Beast Club coming to ruin your day.
Well, fair enough. It might all backfire on poor Drilla.
The Yujiros and whoever else that comes out that's not going to be in the main card. I think that there's going to be some aspects of War Dogs that are going to be very successful in their outing tonight, and there's going to be some War Dogs that you're going to think, "Whoa, what happened there?" And I'm inclined to think that Drilla Maloney may not get out of this with a win, just because he's the babyface now, and you kind of have to put him in like an underneath position, and just getting a win over Sonata right now kind of just tells you exactly what they think of him going forward, and that to me is the most curious thing.
All right, we'll see how that one turns out. If Drilla wins the match, then maybe they do have some plans for him down the road.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If not, it's going to be doing the stance with Sonata for a little while longer.
Yeah. Okay, coming up next, we will have the return of Hirooki Goto. And I find the timing of this thing fascinating, so we'll get to that later. Hirooki Goto, Yoshihashi, so Bishamon, teaming with Yo to face Ryohei Oiwa, Hartley Jackson, and Kosei Fujita. The presence of Jackson in this match, Jeremy, leads me to believe that this is just going to be a clean welcome back finish for Goto. I see him winning this thing, probably with his either the GTR or the double team move with the Yoshihashi, but I think this is designed to be a feel-good welcome back moment for our samurai dad.
I agree. Do you think that Goto is in any way, shape, or form positioned in the world title picture?
Oh, I think he will be. That's what we're going to get to later. I don't think he's long for underneath six-mans. We're going to talk about that later.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah, I think they'd be insane not to. After that, TV title match, we have Hiroshi Tanahashi and El Phantasmo. This is for the television title. They've been trading wins. It's been portrayed a little bit as the Thunder Kiss 86 versus the High Fly Flow, the Battle of the Frog Splashes and their versions of them. And Jado almost seemed pleased to have taken a High Fly Flow like he did at Korakuen Hall. And post-match comments, he could barely contain a smile on his face as he talked about it. This is somebody who's worked with Tanahashi for a very long time. And sometimes El Phantasmo wins, beats a young lion with the Thunder Kiss. That's been the road to pattern. I don't see a reason for Tanahashi to take the television title here, so this might be one of the few jobs. On the other hand, somebody has to face Tanahashi at the Tokyo Dome. Won't be El Phantasmo, but as he's holding up a championship and celebrating a win and playing air guitar, might be a good time for a video board challenge, perhaps, Jeremy. I'm just tossing that out.
We're waiting for it to happen. You know, like we're waiting for the Tanahashi deal. And if I had to guess, it's probably going to happen after Wrestle Dynasty at this point. Because
after Wrestle Dynasty?
Yeah, the one for AEW.
Oh, you think that's when they're gonna...
I think that whoever it's going to be at this point, I think it's an AEW guy that like Okada, essentially.
Yeah.
And they're going to get that match out of the way. And then he's got a tag title match going on there because they have the Takeshita and they have the Okada feud going on. Takeshita has his title thing, but you kind of need to separate those two because people really want to see those two go at it. And it's not going to happen in the New Japan ring. But I do think that both of those guys are going to be on the Wrestle Kingdom card, just given the possibility of who Tanahashi's opponent is going to be. With that said, getting back to this match, I've been watching these like road to matches, and the love that these two have for each other is just undeniable. They're enjoying their time with each other in the ring. Tanahashi is getting wins on Jado going into the title match. It seems to me like Tanahashi is hell bent on putting ELP over in a singles match on the way out, but like they don't really want to wrestle each other. They want to wrestle each other and like really enjoy just being in the ring with each other. They're doing the drumming and the air guitar and just it's a feel good feud. And it's just one of those things that people are just kind of enjoying and it's checking off the box before the Tanahashi thing. And this is like the medicine for the House of Torture crap to me. It's like I'm watching this and I'm like, yeah, this is fine. I'm not taking either of it super seriously at this exact moment because the stakes haven't been raised up to that point for me. But for me, this is this is a delightful feud that is probably going to wrap up, and I'll be like, yeah, that was cute.
Okay. As far as Sonata and Drilla Maloney mentioned, Venkin has a comment on that. He says, "No DQ. I can smell the interference."
Come on.
I think we all can. He also mentions that so Goto wins and shows up later. That's kind of where I'm thinking here. We'll extrapolate upon that when we get to it. But yeah, that's the thing where Tanahashi, I think, could probably put over El Phantasmo here. The question is this his final Sumo Hall match? That seems pretty wild. Unless there's another event at Sumo Hall on which Tanahashi would appear. I don't know.
This is probably final Sumo Hall match.
Wow.
There's a lot of last matches he's having in a lot of places, man.
Yeah, but Sumo Hall is a biggie, isn't it? That just feels odd. Yeah, I
but
know. Edion Arena is going to be a tough one, and then this,
Tokyo Dome, the last Tokyo Dome match. You know what I mean?
But that one we know. But as these things come along, you're like, God, is this the last time he's going to be in this town?
Yes,
is it the last time he's going to be in this place?
We are sub 100
Sumo Hall.
days. Like, remember a year ago where we were nearing the time where Tanahashi's like putting a stipulation for a Wrestle Kingdom match last year, like, if I lose, I'll retire a year early. And everyone like, could that possibly happen? I'm like, no, it's not going to happen.
But Power Struggle is often in November, but that's usually in Osaka. So this could be it for him in Sumo. All right, after that, Boltin Oleg and Evil for the Never Openweight Championship. This one, Jeremy, I could see going either way. The preview tags haven't really given much away, except that there have been consistent post-match attacks from House of Torture. Sometimes Boltin makes a comeback and gets the best of it. Sometimes he doesn't. You could put the belt on Evil just to have something where a heel has something that we want a babyface to go get in the Dome, just to put it up as a prize so that we have a babyface we can cheer for to try to get the thing away from House of Torture and all that stuff. You could absolutely do that. And they could also put over Boltin and carry him over into the Dome as the Never Openweight champion if they have an intriguing opponent for him. It could go this one. Honestly, I'm 50-50 on. There are good scenarios in each direction.
I haven't really wavered from my thoughts from last weekend, which is that I think they've done everything they need to do with Boltin right now. And there are other people that are up and coming, like Aaron Wolf, that may kind of take the spot that he has in the immediate future, just kind of like that standout athletic, like powerhouse kind of thing. So I'm inclined to think that Evil is winning this belt going into Wrestle Kingdom. Just it makes a lot more sense to me. I would love to see Boltin continue with the belt. It would show that New Japan to me is confident and taking a bold direction that isn't entirely predictable with one of the mainstays of the promotion that everyone just kind of sees like they kind of go back to this guy for like the base of a new wrestling story to tell. And that's not really what they do with Boltin Oleg. He's got more overcoming odds kind of story. So I'm really leaning towards Evil. I think we're setting the table for Wrestle Kingdom, and to me, Boltin Oleg as a singles champion going into Wrestle Kingdom doesn't feel like the strongest play.
Yeah, fair enough. I think you may have talked me into that. I could see scenarios where they don't do it, but I agree with you that Evil as champion going into Kingdom against a babyface makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Company. What's next? All right. So the IWGP Tag Team Championship on the line. Shota Umino and Yuya Uemura challenging the Knockout Brothers. As we've mentioned ad nauseum, has not been a successful title defense of this title anyway in almost a year. The key to this, do they want to make the Knockout Brothers special? Well, here's the way you can do it. You can have them have the first successful title defense in a year. I advocate that. I think that would be good. For Shota and Yuya, I still feel like I'm trying to will this into existence, that there's going to be some sort of turn and that there's going to be a grudge match down the road with these two. So you can put the title on them and put them into World Tag League and then have it all fall apart. You could absolutely do that. Or you could have them lose here to the Knockout Brothers and maybe look at each other a little crossways. The big thing doesn't have to happen here, but I figure like seeds planted, so if they win, they can go into World Tag League and say, oh yeah, we're this united front. It's fantastic. Look at us. We've got our belts. if they lose this match, they'll still go into World Tag League, I think, as a team. Only maybe now they're kind of a little suspicious of each other. Does this guy really have my back? And I think so. I think they want to push the Knockout Brothers, and I hope they understand what a breath of fresh air the Knockout Brothers are. I would advocate for them retaining here and doing what no one's done in a year, making it look special. And again, going into World Tag League as the champions, I think that makes a lot of sense and works for these guys.
Steven, I feel like I will have failed at communicating effectively if someone at this point does not believe that I am all in on the Knockout Brothers.
Yeah,
and I think that this match is going to fucking rule.
Yeah, I think it'll be really good too. That's a fair point, by the way, that I just glossed over, and you're absolutely right. Bottom line is, after those 2 singles matches, this should be wonderful.
Yeah, I just like, even from Destruction in Kobe with that Ishii and Taichi match, where they made a statement on the scene with 2 veterans that gave as good as they got. And now you have essentially 4 of the young generation in the ring, third from the top, no old guys, no veterans, no nothing. And this is probably the match I'm most looking forward to on this card.
Everybody under 30. Everybody's under 30 here for a change.
This is the heralding of the next generation kind of match. You know, it's like, it's not just the Reiwa. It's like you have expanded this generation. All of a sudden you have these 2 unknown X factors, and it feels exciting. It feels unknown, and it feels like you don't know exactly where they're going to be positioned among these guys. But every time I see Yuto Ice, I'm like, this dude is a future world champion.
Very interesting. Brad says Knockout Brothers have to win here, and I'd have them clean sweep the World Tag League. And, Maria is all in on this one as well. I think a lot of us feel really good about the Knockout Brothers. They look terrific in their title win. They were against Ishii and Taichi. Those are 2 guys you can look really good with. You can look really good with Yuya Uemura and Shota Umino too. So I'm with you, Jeremy. I am as excited about this match as anything outside of the main event on this card.
Yes, 100%.
Another one I am excited about, though, is Yota Tsuji and Gabe Kidd for the global title. And this is another one that's going to go a long way toward telling us what they have in mind for the Dome. I think they will have Gabe Kidd in a prominent position in the Tokyo Dome, because I think they do believe in Kidd, and I do think that they want to reward Kidd, especially his performance against Kenny Omega last year, with a spot in the Dome. Doesn't have to be in a global title match, but it could be. And they've shown that they will go with part-time champions in the past. For Yota Tsuji, I can absolutely see him regaining this title, especially if they have him in mind for big things in the Dome. Walker and Chris have been planting seeds on the English language side. From what I understand, there's a little bit more of this on the English side than there is on the Japanese side, about Tsuji wanting to take the global title, parlay that into a challenge for the world title, win both, and defend them concurrently. Not make them into one championship, but defend the global title one night, defend the world title the another night. But that seems to be more of a Charlton and Walker thing than something that, like, Milano talks about with Harada, which I think is significant. So Tsuji absolutely could win this thing and then challenge for the world title at a very important spot, maybe even at the Dome later. Could absolutely happen. Could also be a thing where Gabe Kidd turns him away and they have something in mind for Gabe. Again, we don't know what the Tokyo Dome card is, of course. They already have in mind what they want for these guys. It's just a matter of how prominent they want to put Gabe Kidd on that card. After the performance against Kenny Omega, I feel like Kidd is going to be in a big spot. So I'm very curious to see who wins this thing, because it's going to have a big impact on Wrestle Kingdom.
Do you know what their one-on-one match record is?
What's that?
It is 11-11-1.
Ha! How about that?
They both
have, think Gabe needs to win. Yeah,
they both have 11 wins against each other, and then they have the double knockout from February. And there's a part of me that kind of thinks this is the last time that they're going to face off for a very long time, if at all. And for me, if that's the case, I have Yuto Tsuji win. I think Gabe Kidd can have a special singles match with anyone at this point at Wrestle Kingdom, and it'd be fine. But I think Yuto Tsuji needs to be positioned as high up on the card with a belt for the optics of what's going to happen going forward.
I think that's really smart. And here's the point with Tsuji. He kind of needs that belt, doesn't he? He kind of needs the belt to do what they want to do with him if they do want to make him a main eventer. I agree with you. The kid is probably not going to be with New Japan a whole lot longer. I think the AEW money will get him, and I don't blame him. Again, I don't blame wrestlers for getting as much money as they can get for putting their bodies and brains through what they put it through. With that in mind, Gabe Kidd has already proven that he can make a special singles match really special. It doesn't have to be a title match, and especially if he is going to be doing more AEW and not as much New Japan going forward, take the title off of here, give it to Tsuji, let him move up the card toward the top. Gabe can do the special singles match at the Tokyo Dome, lose again perhaps to somebody, and move away and move back, head off to the States and come back for special occasions. But Tsuji kind of needs a title. Gabe needs a cause. Character-wise.
That's a good way to put it. Good way to put it. It'll be a fine match. They always have good matches with each other. But if these guys want to be considered main event, they need to wrestle out of their minds. Because right now they are not booked as the main event, and they are not treated as the main event.
What is? That it is right there. Zack Sabre Jr., Konosuke Takeshita for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. I have another one where we have competing scenarios going on here. You and I have talked a lot about Takeshita, that we think New Japan believes he's the guy and wants to bring him in. I have advocated, don't do that. Don't make him the guy until he is your guy. Part-time World Heavyweight Champion gives me the creeps a little bit. I think that's a bad move. Unless he is leaving AEW and coming over here full-time after that, that is the time when you make Takeshita the World Heavyweight Champion. That being said, they don't necessarily learn from mistakes they've made in the past, and they might do it here thinking, well, last year's attendance was considered a bit of a disappointment with Zack. Now, they already have 20,000 tickets sold, so they might not be as worried about it. You can make Takeshita the World Champion, but you really run a risk there as a guy that is only partly with your company and partly with AEW and partly with DDT, although he hardly ever wrestles for DDT, but it's a risk. You can have Zack win this thing. You saw the crowd turn a little bit on Takeshita during, and certainly at the G1 finals, where the idea of a part-time guy being the guy irked the crowd. They didn't like it so much.
Right.
You can put Zack over here and have kind of a happy moment. And you can say, look, Sumo Hall's my building. I beat Naito for the title here. Takeshita, I can best you in Sumo Hall. This is my home court. This is my home court. You can do that. Especially if, and here's where I'm going from earlier, especially if Hirooki Goto comes out and says, you broke my arm, you little bastard. I've beaten you for that title. You've beaten me for the title. Rubber match, January 4th, Tokyo Dome, Goto versus Sabre 3. I think there's a story there coming off that fictitious broken arm when he went to shoot the movie. Notice we never saw him with the cast. They never did any of that stuff. So to me, you've got 20,000 tickets sold. Goto is a sentimental favorite. You can give Goto a main event here, and it's Goto that draws the house and not Zack with Shota. It's Goto with Zack. Does that make sense? Where Goto is the A side and Zack's the B side. You don't have to put the world title in the hands of a part-timer. So to me, you can have Zack win this match and turn away Takeshita's challenge. Have Takeshita come out and just say, and here's the story for Takeshita down the road. I tried to do this part-time. It didn't work. I won the G1. Fantastic. Loved it. But I couldn't win the world title. Throughout all that, going through the G1, walking down the aisle of King of Pro Wrestling, I realized this is where I want to be. This is where my heart actually is. And I want to be a New Japan wrestler. and now I am a New Japan wrestler, and all my focus is going to be on going after the world title. Do that in 2026 or whenever you can with his AEW contract, and you've got yourself a full-time superstar in Takeshita that can have the kind of matches that we miss from the Okada days and things like that. In the meantime, you've got Goto. People love Goto. Goto having a moment on a night that Tanahashi retires and maybe somebody else is put into a prominent spot like a Yota Tsuji and wins a big match, and now there's somewhat of a future. You've got the Knockout Brothers as fresh faces. That's the kind of thing that can give you a little bit of momentum. That's my treatise on this match. I can absolutely see them giving the title to Takeshita because they love him. And like you said, the last year Wrestle Kingdom wasn't considered all that successful with Zack. Will they want to go back with him as champion? I think you might if his challenger is Goto. Your thoughts?
If Zack Sabre Jr. retains this match, Goto's the play. I'm not sure they're confident with Zack in any way, shape, or form in the main event, given what happened last year with him in 2 main events and the low drawing card. But since Tanahashi's already, drawn a house that's pretty significantly matching what happened last year, maybe that's not even a factor. With that said, I feel like this is Takeshita time. I do not rule out the possibility of a double dash with Yota Tsuji and Takeshita wrestling each other and merging titles and doing that whole thing, winner take all on the underneath. You could still have Yota Tsuji with a challenger, but I honestly don't know who that challenger would be if, he ends up with that title. They have not set up anybody in that position in any way, shape, or form besides Finley and Gabe Kidd, and I do not want to do that dance again. So these are all some considerations that I have. So, that's just kind of where I'm at. I just feel like we have done this dance with Takeshita, and Takeshita at Wrestle Kingdom, Takeshita being advocated for by TV executives at TV Asahi. It just like they look at this dude as something special, and the fact that they can't get him full time and they're still compromising to get as many shares as they can just says to me, it's like, you can't sleep on this dude as much as we all think it's a terrible idea of how they're going about this.
Okay. Well, let's get to some comments here before we wrap things up because we've got some good ones here. Fernando Zaya says Gabe Kidd needs to win and that he wants Gabe Kidd in AEW badly.
I do too. I want him there more than I want him in New Japan.
Yeah, all right. And Maria is on the other side. Says Maria Graciela Saya says he should stay in New Japan. I think he's an intriguing character. I like him in New Japan more than being lost in the AEW shuffle. And who knows what AEW's future really is right there. Brad says the more I think about this, I think Zack Sabre Jr. wins. The preview tags have had Zack and Goto. I think we're getting that rematch soon with Goto regaining the title before Kingdom. That is bold. So perhaps a power struggle thing, Brad's thinking. There is still that show. There is still another one here. But I'm thinking that we're going to know at least some of the Wrestle Kingdom card coming out of this because they need to start advertising something.
I would be very careful about doing title matches with the IWGP title other than November. You need to have that. You need to have those matches set in stone. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like
you need to start promoting the card.
I would not do one title switch to another title switch. At best one more title switch before Wrestle Kingdom. That's it.
Yeah, it gets tricky, doesn't it? It's a thing where you need to start promoting the card, at least some of it. You don't have to release the entire Wrestle Kingdom card after King of Pro Wrestling, but I feel like you need to start putting some things out there, putting some things on the marquee. Mm-hmm. Maria believes that the G1 winner should become world champion. She just feels like that's how they should do it.
Should be a through line for sure.
The prescription is here with us. Good to see you. It says Zack is not main event talent. He just feels that strongly that Zack doesn't have the juice as a draw.
Hey, is that Dr. Lariat? Yeah, he's a new member of the Discord, and all right. He has joined us here. Hello, sir. Thank you. Hey. Thank you for the kind words, by the way.
He says Takeshita versus Goto is a bigger match. Well, that's a thought. I mean, Goto doesn't have to just challenge Zack. He could challenge Takeshita, absolutely. And he also mentions that Zack has not panned out as IWGP champion. Putting the belt on Takeshita at least puts it in the hands of a Reiwa guy. That's a fair point. So let's look at it from that end. Say Takeshita wins this thing. You know what? That might work. The more I'm thinking about that, the more it might work. So I think Zack and Goto 3 has juice to it just because they did the broken arm thing for a reason, right? He's got to come back and go after revenge. Otherwise, he would have just lost and gone off to do the movie. And they would have announced that. But instead, they made an injury thing. It's because they want to go back to it and get revenge. Stay with me. I'll be quick, I promise. If Takeshita wins this thing, now you have there's a part-timer as world champion, and Goto can challenge him and say, I will be the representative for New Japan. I'll bring it home. That's a story. That's a good story. There you go.
I think Goto in that main event position with either guy is viable, in all honesty.
Yeah, it's Goto challenging at the Dome is a good idea in this circumstance.
Or Tsuji in my mind.
Yes, yeah, and also a good thing because with the idea of launching him as the next guy, right? I mean, that's the whole thing is that they really need to move toward the future here. And Tanahashi exiting the stage as a new hero emerges is a pretty sharp move, I think. And Prescription also wants to say, nice compliment and thank you. He says, you guys do such good work.
I
really appreciate that. And he mentions Goto as the returning hero. That's a classic story, and it might work really beautifully. And he says the idea of another double gold dash is sort of stagnant. I agree with you on that. And I think the global title has a purpose that the Intercontinental title had when it was Shinsuke Nakamura's. Like it was a legitimate title that can main event shows, and it has a different spirit to it than the World Heavyweight title. The Never Openweight title is there as the BMF title. Mm-hmm. I think they serve different functions, and I think it's healthy to have those. And I agree with you that another double gold dash is not the way to go. I wouldn't do it. I would have a global champion and a world champion. I think it's helped both Finlay and Tsuji to hold that global championship. There's value in having a high up on the card underneath title to get you used to seeing somebody with a belt, defending a belt, being a real champion. No, look what it did for Randy Savage in the WWF.
I'm laughing because my canine alarm clock is going off right
now. Okay, pardon me. That's true. We've gone a little bit over. Your dog is getting on our case. No, but there's value in underneath titles being taken care of because they can get the audience used to the idea of being a champion. So when they move up to the world title, it's not he doesn't deserve this. You've seen him as a champion before. You've seen him in that spot. And there's value in that. So I would like to keep them both as well. And I think the Never Openweight title does something different than that. So, all right. So I think we've gone over a little bit today. The last thing I'm going to mention, and I will only spend about a minute. Today is the 30th anniversary of one of the most significant matches in the company's history. So 30-year anniversary of the UWFI NJPW All Out War card. And this was a show that was at the Tokyo Dome. It drew an announced 67,000. That's probably a little optimistic, but it was an enormous crowd. And that was before they blocked off all the outfield seats with that giant set. You know, they actually had people in those seats. And the dome was very, very full that day because it was the UWFI's Nobuhiko Takada taking on Keiji Muto in the main event. And this whole card was the UWFI, which was a company that branched off from pro wrestling and was presenting a shoot style before anybody really knew what MMA really looked like. This is the very, very early days of UFC. It hadn't developed into its own fighting style yet. UFC was still taking a karate guy and putting him against a sumo wrestler and a boxer and putting him in with a judo guy. You know, it hadn't blended into that style of striking and wrestling. There were all kinds of companies in Japan at this point that were presenting a worked version of pro wrestling that was supposed to be real. You know, and so you had things like Rings, which was Akira Maeda. Minoru Suzuki was part of a group that formed Pancrase. they presented matches with very strict adherence to the rules. Guys didn't cheat. They weren't allowed to cheat. The referee was enforcing rules the same way they do in martial arts tournaments and in boxing matches. There weren't heels cheating. Basically, it was just fighting. It worked very, very stiff. And these companies were making inroads. And there was a UWF New Japan feud in the 80s that drew bonkers. And then here in the 90s, they came together again. And this was UWFI against New Japan. And it did a few things. First of all, it got incredible heat, absolutely incredible heat for this. Go back and find it. Some of the stuff, Takada versus Muto is on NJPW World if you search for it. It led to other major matches for them with Takada as the antagonist, where Nobuhiko Takada would come in as a special attraction and wrestle one of the top guys in New Japan. Here's the UWF guy that is coming in, and the matches looked a little different, a little more shoot-y, so to speak. And the other thing it did, besides drawing monster houses and having incredible heat, was it got over the figure 4 leg lock in a way that it hadn't been in 20 years, because Muto used it to beat Takada in the main event. And once he did, that move was over like crazy. Whenever Muto used it, whenever anybody else used it, it really got that move over. But there was an excitement to this, Jeremy. The issue with groups like Pancrase and Rings and UWFI, you work these matches really, really stiff. You tried to make it so that it wasn't see-through, that it wasn't a shoot. And so, you didn't see like running of the ropes or any of that stuff. You can't work those matches all that often. You just can't. They're too physically taxing. There's a reason MMA, you only fight a few times a year, right? That means they couldn't do that many shows. And it was hard to pay these guys to be full-time roster members. They would take care of the top guys, but it was a challenge. And of course, there was the inevitable injuries that would happen under this style. So these companies would come and go, and Rings and Pancrase lasted longer than most. But they eventually would kind of flame out once they had done all their major matches of their roster. There really wasn't anywhere to particularly go. And it was hard for them not everybody wanted to work that style. And then when they did, they couldn't work that style very often. So without that income, it got hard to pay guys to continue to be members of their rosters. Does that make any sense? So at least New Japan could run full tours and pay everybody every week. And didn't really work out for the other companies like that long term. But of course, MMA was taking hold. And we would see that really come in with Inokiism almost killed New Japan in the early 2000s. But in 1995, 30 years ago today, this was one of the biggest things in wrestling. I was in college at the time, and I was logging on to the Usenet pro wrestling groups back in the day of the early days of the internet, so that I could find out who the hell won this match between Takada and Keiji Muto. I will say that for us hardcore nerds, as I certainly was, and observer readers, this was one of the biggest events of the year, and something that was a key part of one of the hottest periods of New Japan, which is that mid-90s run when both New Japan and All Japan were utterly on fire, packing out the dome, packing out Budokan Hall in All Japan's case, Sumo Hall in New Japan's case, show after show after show with rabid, loud crowds. Go back and find this stuff. Some of it's on YouTube, especially the All Japan stuff. Some of the stuff on NJPW World from this era. Prescription mentioned Hashimoto and Takada. Good Lord. those two had an incredible one at a show that was, this is when they were running the Tokyo Dome and selling it out more than once a year, like 3 times a year. They could run the dome. Battle Formation was the April event where Hashimoto and Takada wrestled each other. And he mentions it. It was hard hitting, but you didn't take a lot of bumps. It's similar to what Suzuki does to this day. And Suzuki was part of the Pancrase group and one of the stars of Pancrase. So was Ken Shamrock. Back in the day, he was part of Pancrase. He was the king of Pancrase. That was their title. Anyway, it was the last thing people truly believed about professional wrestling, Jeremy, is that there was heat between the different promotions, because there was. Right. So whenever 2 promotions worked together back then, there was an air of danger to it. Was one of them going to take advantage of somebody else? Was someone going to pull a fast one on somebody? Hardly ever did. But there were things like, Smoky Mountain versus USWA at a small level in the United States. And you could do things like that. And the last thing wrestling fans truly believed about pro wrestling was that the promotions hated each other. So when they would find a way to come together, and of course, UWFI got some wins and New Japan got some wins on the undercard. So it always came down to the main event, right? Who's going to come out on top? There was a real air of danger and excitement about this show. And it was one of the most anticipated events New Japan did of that era 30 years ago today, Takada and Muto. And what can I say? As I remember 20-year-old Steven getting up in the morning to try to find out who won this match, and from going on my dial-up and waiting patiently for it to hook in so I could get on the Usenet groups and find a post that usually came from a Japanese student at the University of North Texas who would post, I still remember you, buddy, Tabe, who would post all the Japanese wrestling results. And what can I say? Me and my friends, the Observer readers, were all talking about it. And like, oh, Muto won with a figure four. With the figure four, a move that was dead in Japan before that. Is a big deal. Go back and watch the match if you want. If you want to see 60,000 people red hot heat, and who doesn't want to see that? Watch some of those dome matches from this time with Takada against New Japan stars. It's quite the rush.
We got to wrap this up, but I will add, I am familiar with Usenet, and I was a frequent user of Rec Art Comic X books, which were all the X-Men comics, and there were people that were Keeper of the Flames and all that, and had the Usenet links of where you could go to find encyclopedic knowledge about all these things. Yeah. Usenet was beautiful before the internet ruined it.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. It was what the internet should have been all along, right there. And Colin mentions, by the way, if you want to watch Marty Gold's Grand Destiny show, it's 4,000 yen, about 20 pounds for him, about $25 US-ish. In that range, very affordable. That's Marty Gold's show that's coming up later in the month. And of course, Noah's show, about $15 US on a Bima. I mean, it should be worth that for sure. And then King of Pro Wrestling on Monday. It's a wonderful weekend for pro wrestling if you're a fan of this stuff.
Steven, I'm putting up the closing credits.
All right. We got to go. All right. Thank you, everybody who's joined us here live. Thanks for everybody who listens to us later. It was a supersized edition, but there was a lot to talk about. And we will be back next week to go over this card step by step and look forward to what is coming in the near future. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This has been Speaking of Strong Style, and we'll talk to all of you again very soon.
Peace out.